I now recognize the gentleman, the ranking member of the subcommittee, Dr. Burgess.
I thank the chair. And Dr. Bright, I hope, as it is clear to you, everyone on this dais on both sides appreciates you coming before us today, even if we are frustrated having this hearing without a full understanding of the facts. Again, just to clarify, you're testifying in your personal capacity and not on behalf of the agency or the administration.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you for that. Let me ask you a question about hydrochloroquine, really even maybe a little bit more broadly, the disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs that have been looked at for therapy for this disease. I asked about hydroxychloroquine because it does seem to be central to whatever disagreement you had with Department of HHS and the administration, but hydroxychloroquine was initially identified as a potential therapeutic because, number one, of its anti-inflammatory effects and its ability to calm things in the immune system. And as we know, one of the features of this disease is the overwhelming cytokine response that overwhelms the host. There also may be an effect of blocking the virus at the point of contact with the cell. Certainly something that probably deserves a little investigation. But again, it's not the only one. There were some other drugs, and I think, if I'm correct, BARDA supported with investments. Acterma and Kevzara, which are thought to have similar impacts on the ability to suppress the cytokine response as hydrochloroquine. Am I correct in that?
There are a number of drugs that we were evaluating initially, Congressman, that we were considering to conduct clinical studies to get further information if they really had an impact and if they were safe to use in patients infected with this virus.
Do you have available to you the dollar amounts that BARDA appropriated or authorized for each of those two drugs, Acterma and Kevzara?
I don't have those numbers available with me now.
Would you be able to make them available to the committee?
I believe HHS could make those available. BARDA could probably make those investments available.
Were you concerned with hydroxychloroquine at the time you made those awards for Acterma and Kevzara? Was the concern with hydroxychloroquine, which became then paramount in your disagreement with the administration, was it already established when you made these other investments in similar medications?
My concerns around the safety of hydroxychloroquine in people infected with the COVID-19 virus were reflective of the scientific review that we received from an interagency group of clinicians and regulatory experts and scientists. At the time that we learned about hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, there was limited data available, and our proposal and actions were to see if we could identify a source of that drug so the NIH could conduct a randomized controlled clinical study. That's a similar action we took with remdesivir. Once we thought remdesivir had promise from data coming from China, NIH quickly established a clinical study, a randomized controlled study to evaluate remdesivir. So with hydroxychloroquine, that was also our preferred plan of action.
And you, of course, authored the letter to the FDA asking for the emergency use authorization for hydroxychloroquine.
I was directed as the BARDA director from the office of the HHS secretary to put in place an expanded access IND program to make chloroquine donation from Bayer available to Americans through a unique opportunity that would utilize an app and perhaps would make it available to Americans who were not under close supervision of a healthcare provider. During that,
of course, this hearing, not really a hearing on hydroxychloroquine. I, of course, would welcome a robust hearing on therapeutics and the research that's going on, what we've invested in, what seems to be panning out, what has not. I'll note that both Kevzara and the other medication may not have panned out. And I think the manufacturing company for Kevzara announced that they'll discontinue part of the clinical study because it looked unlikely to help COVID patients. But I will tell you, since starting this, since you identified yourself and this hearing got noticed, I'm hearing from a lot of doctors, my state, around the country, who have experience using hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, coupled with erythromycin and zinc, and they're reporting significant benefit if it is used early enough in the course, and may eliminate the need for hospitalization and ventilatory support.
Gentleman's time
I
is
don't know if
expired.
that's right, but I think
Gentleman's
it's
time is
important enough
expired.
that we should look into it, and would just be interested if you did that as part of your duties of BARDA.
The gentleman's time has expired. The
May the
chair now
gentleman answer the question?
recognizes,
Would the witness be able to answer the question?
may-
So I believe it's important. I've heard those anecdotal stories as well, and they were not conducted in the context of a randomized controlled clinical study. It's very difficult to understand data from those types of observational studies or anecdotal stories. So the drug might have some benefit in some populations, but we won't know that until we have that information from a truly randomized controlled clinical study. Many of those studies are ongoing now. Some of those studies we're starting to see data from, and those studies in those populations tested haven't shown an overwhelming evidence of benefit from the use of hydroxychloroquine in those patients. But the different studies are devised to look at different angles of it, as you described.
And most of those studies are at the end when someone is already pretty
gentleman's time
ill.
has expired.
You can't do those
The
studies
chair
without the drug, though, and you
recognizes
did need to acquire the drug for
ranking-
this-
The
perform the
gentleman's
studies.
time, please. We all want to be fair to each other. The gentleman's time is expired.